In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a WordPress website with a domain name and an SSL certificate on AWS Lightsail. If you're not familiar, Amazon Web Services are notorious for being complicated, but your best bet to get started with AWS is with Lightsail because of a very easy to use interface. There are some caveats and gotchas along the way, and I will be sure to explain them in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in your web browser, go to aws.amazon.com/lightsail, and that's going to take you to the Amazon Lightsail landing page. New users will get 3 months for free on select bundles. So if you have an account or if you don't have an account, then you can sign up and get your first 3 months free. Otherwise, at this page, let's go ahead and click on Get Started with Lightsail. Because I do have an account, I'm going to be taken right to my dashboard for Lightsail. And the first thing I want to do is to create an instance. So when I talk about the ease of use of Amazon Lightsail, this is what I mean. They have a nice interface where you can go through step by step and configure your server. So my server is located in Oregon. I'm okay with that location. You can change your location if you would like to. But once you have that figured out, you can come down and select a platform. I'm going to stick with a Linux platform, and you have two options here. You can install an application on top of an operating system, or you can just install an operating system by itself. I'm going to do the WordPress app, which is going to run on top of, I believe it's an Ubuntu operating system, and it's going to also have an Apache web server, PHP, and some type of MySQL database underneath that. And you can see that WordPress certified by Bitnami. We'll talk about that more throughout this tutorial. Now, as far as connecting to your server once it's created, we can do that with SSH keys. There's also a built-in web console, which I'll show you. I'm going to download the default key right here, and we'll use that a little bit later. And then as far as your instance plan, you have lots of options. The 3 months free are eligible up to the $10 per month plan, which gives you 2 gigabytes of RAM and 1 CPU core with 60 gigabytes of solid state drive. And per month, you get 3 terabytes of transfer bandwidth. So let's go with that plan. And then we can name our instance. So I'm going to call mine WordPress Tony. And that looks good. So let's create our instance. And on the next page here, you'll see that this will say pending until it's ready to go. So let's just fast forward until it's ready to go. And actually, before we do that, I want to point out that we do have an IP address associated with this instance already. And like I said in the beginning of the tutorial, we are going to set up a domain name. So what we can do is go to wherever you bought your domain name from, find the DNS settings for that, and point it back to this IP address. So I bought my domain name from Google Domains. My domain name is careerquitter.com. So I'm going to come in here, find the DNS settings, and add 2 A records. Okay, so this first A record will be associated with just the domain name itself, and it's going to point to the IP address of our Lightsail instance. And then I'm going to add another A record, right? It's going to be www.careerquitter.com, and that is also going to point to the IP address of our Lightsail instance. So I'll save those. They take some time to propagate, maybe a couple minutes up to a couple hours, but that's why we want to do that as soon as possible, as soon as we know the IP address of our server instance, so that can happen. So let's go back over here, see if this is ready to go. And it is, which is great. So let's click on this and see what we have as far as the options are concerned. Now, like I was referencing to, there are a couple different ways that we can connect to our instance. We can use SSH on the command line using terminal or the command prompt on Windows, terminals for Mac and Linux, or you can use PuTTY on Windows. And then the other way is with the built-in console, which is, where is that? I don't see that on here, but on the previous page, you have this console window here, which if you click that, it's going to automatically connect to your instance and log you in to the remote computer, the instance that's running on a data center in Oregon. This says the login failed. It just started up. Try again in a minute or two. So let's pause here for a second until that is ready. And guys, I just figured out that I overlooked something. So this way to get to the terminal via your web browser is the same thing on this previous page. Connect using SSH. So that'll also pull up that same window. It'll connect to your instance, and I think we're ready to go at this point. Yep, it'll log us in via SSH directly from our browser, where we can issue commands to the server. Now, the other way that you can connect to this via SSH, like I was saying, is terminal if you're on Mac or Linux, and PuTTY or the command prompt if you're on a later version of Windows. And I'm going to show you how to do that on Mac here. So I'm going to open up a terminal window, and we downloaded this key, this SSH key from earlier, and that's in our downloads directory. So in here we can do something like SSH, the username, which in this case it's bitnami, at the IP address of the instance, which is this right here, 52.13.13.35. Hit and that is how you would typically connect to an SSH server, but we have to specify the key, which is -I, and then the name or the directory or the name of the key, which is Lightsail default key US West -2.pm for me. So if I execute that, I can type yes because this is the first time I'm connecting to it, and I trust the connection. Hit enter, and this actually fails because it says this private key will be ignored. It is required that your private key files are not accessible by other users. So what that basically means is we have to change the permissions with the chmod command to a permission like 400, and we're going to apply that to the Lightsail PEM key here. So let's change the permissions and then try to use execute our SSH command again. And this time it should work. So we'll be logged in just like we were through the web browser. We can do the same exact thing. You pick which way you prefer, either terminal or the web browser. And the other option is to connect to your server via SSH with your domain name. So if that DNS propagation has finished, you can replace your IP address with your domain name. So bitnami at careerquitter.com. For me, you can replace that with your domain name. And if that works, which it looks like it is, that means the DNS propagation has updated. Yes, I am okay with continuing, and there we go, we got the same thing. Another way to visualize your DNS propagation is to go to a website like dnschecker.org, and you can check your A record for your domain name, so careerquitter.com. We're looking at the A record. We can search that, and you'll see that for most of the servers around the world, it is pointing to the IP address for our Lightsail instance. So with that all in place, we can actually go to our website using the domain name in a web browser. So I'm going to open up a new tab here and go to careerquitter.com and load that page, and you'll see that this is our website, our WordPress website. It's using a theme called 2021, and it doesn't have an SSL certificate yet. It is not secure, but we will go ahead and take care of that, and I'll show you a few more things that you need to know in order to properly administer your website. So go back into your SSH session, whether that's in the web browser or on terminal or command prompt, and we'll take a look at a few things. So in here, let's start out with looking at the base install directory for our WordPress website. Like, where do those files actually exist on our system? And that is in the opt bitnami directory. Okay, so we'll change over to that directory and take a look in here. And in here you have a directory for Apache, which is the web server that's running in Apache 2. And you also have your MySQL Maria database, which is the MySQL database, and phpMyAdmin. I'll show you how to access that in a little bit. And then your WordPress directory as well. And inside of the WordPress directory, you have your basic WordPress installation files like your index.php file and your WP config file and all that good stuff like WP content that has all your plugins and themes and everything. So it's good to know that that's where this stuff exists on your Lightsail instance. Now, let's take care of getting an SSL certificate for our website. And we can do that with this command right here. So it's going to be sudo opt bitnami bncert tool. So we'll execute that. And what that's going to do is request an SSL certificate from the certificate authority called Let's Encrypt. And this actually wants us to update this. So let's go ahead and update that actually first. Okay, so it looks like that updated. Let's run that again and try to get that SSL certificate. After a few seconds, you can type in your domain name. So for me, careerquitter.com and www.careerquitter.com. Would you like to enable HTTP to HTTPS redirection? Yes. Hit enter. Enable non-www to www direction. I'm going to say no to that. Enable www to non-www direction. I'm going to say yes to that. And now we're just going to look at this. Do you agree to these changes? This is what we're going to go through, which it's important to look at some of these. So it's going to stop the web server. It's going to issue that Let's Encrypt SSL certificate. It's going to configure a cron job to automatically renew the certificate each month. The server is going to be associated with Career Quitter. We're going to redirect HTTP to HTTPS and go from, if somebody types www.careerquitter.com, they'll be automatically redirected to just careerquitter.com. Okay, do we agree to those changes? Yes, we do. Hit enter, and that will be applied. And then type in your email address, agree to the terms and conditions, and it looks like that was a success. It says the Bitnami HTTPS configuration tool succeeded in modifying your installation. Press enter to continue. So let's go ahead and test that out. Let's go to our website, and if we refresh it now, this should change from non-secure to a lock icon. So let's go ahead and do that. And it does exactly what we want it to do. So when we now have that lock icon, our connection is secure, and we can actually look at the certificate. And under the details section, it says it was issued from Let's Encrypt. So this will expire on February 18th, 2022, which is 3 months from now. But like you saw, that's going to update pretty much on a monthly basis. So you shouldn't have to worry about SSLs for your website at any point in the future. Okay, so how do we get to our WordPress admin dashboard? This is nice to see our website from the outside, but we need to administer it, and we can do that by accessing the admin dashboard at your domain name /wp-admin. And that's going to prompt you for your credentials. So what are our credentials? These credentials are automatically configured for you in your system, in the home directory of your system. So if you cd to tilde, which in this case that is /home/bitnami, there's going to be some files in here called bitnami application password and bitnami credentials. So let's take a look at those two files. If we look at the bitnami credentials, bitnami credentials, this says the default username is user and password is this. And then let's look at bitnami application password. And that also has the same password that was indicated up here. So let's go ahead and try those credentials to log into our WordPress admin dashboard. So I'll copy that. Username is user, password is the password on my clipboard. We will log in. And we are taken to our WordPress admin dashboard. Now, I'm not going to go through the exact steps of configuring your WordPress website or installing plugins or anything like that, but I will show you a couple recommendations. I have a full videos on these topics, so you can check those out. But this comes with a lot of default installed plugins, many of which I don't recommend using. So my suggestion here is to get rid of everything except for W3 Total Cache. And what's the other one that's good? Actually, that might be the only one, W3 Total Cache. So let's select everything and deactivate them. Select everything except W3 total cache. Oh, and actually the other one that you should probably keep is AWS for WordPress. So select everything except W3 total cache in AWS for WordPress, and then deactivate apply. And then the same thing, we'll select everything except for AWS for WordPress and W3 total cache, and we will delete those plugins. Click on apply. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. So that'll one by one get rid of those, so we don't have any of those bloaty plugins potentially making our website slower. We'll update W3 total cache, and that'll get the latest version of that. And now our plugin list is much more reasonable. We just have 2 plugins. For a theme, you can come into Appearance in Themes and change the lookout and feel of your theme. You can add a new theme and look on the marketplace here and pick any one of these that you like. I have my recommendations, which I will link in another video. One other thing WordPress related is to come into your settings, go to General, and you'll notice that your WordPress address and site address don't have HTTPS. Okay, they're just saying HTTP. That's something that we want to change. And the reason for changing that, I don't want to get too complicated, but as you're creating pages and links and all that stuff in the database, this is what the database is going to use for its URLs. So sometimes it can get out of sync, and you want to always make sure you're using HTTPS. So in order to change that, we're going to open back up our terminal window. And if you remember from earlier, if we go to opt bitnami, this is where our WordPress directory was. So let's go into the WordPress directory. And in here we have a file called wp-config.php. So let's edit that using the text editor of your choice. I'm going to use vim wp-config.php. You can use something like nano too. And in here, I'm going to find those URLs. So I think URL... Here we go. So you can see that the WP home line has been hard-coded to HTTP : and the site URL is hard-coded to HTTP : So all we want to do is stick in a S after the P. So if you're using Vim, type I to enter into insert mode, and then you can type S, use your arrow keys, come up here, type your S, and then to save changes, simply type escape : WQ, hit enter. Now we can minimize this, go back to our admin dashboard and our settings, refresh the page, and that's going to kick us out. So let's log back in, and we'll come back in here to settings, general, and you'll see that now we have HTTPS for our URLs. Now this last topic that I'm going to go over with you is how to access your database if you ever need to modify it for some reason. This is an advanced topic, but I just, again, want to make sure that you are aware of that in case you need to administer your site in this way in the future. So we will come back to our terminal window, and to get into the database on the command line, you can type mysql -u root -p, and then you're going to use that application password from earlier to log into it. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here, and that's going to take you to the MySQL command prompt. So here you can do something like show databases, semicolon, and that'll show you all the MySQL databases. One of them is Bitnami WordPress. So if we want to look at that database, all the tables associated with it, we'll do use Bitnami _WordPress, semicolon, and then now we can do show tables, semicolon. And these are all the tables that WordPress created for us, and this is essentially the core fundamental back end for your WordPress website. So that is here for you to know about. It's intimidating to interact with the database on the command line, so there is another way to access the database via a graphical user interface, and that is with something called PHP my admin. Now, this is slightly complicated to set up. We're going to set up a reverse SSH tunnel, but don't worry about the logistics too much. I actually have another video to explain this a little bit more in detail, but let's just take it for what I say here. This is how you can access that in a web browser. So open up a new terminal window, or if you're on Windows, a command prompt, and we're going to execute the command to make a reverse SSH tunnel. So we're going to type in actually we're going to go to our downloads directory, which is where that key is again, the Lightsail key, and we're going to do ssh-n-l 8888:127.0.0.1:80-I, the name of our key, lightsail.pem, and then the same thing as before, bitnami at careerquitter.com, and I think that's it. So let's execute that. That'll open up a reverse SSH tunnel. So now on our local computer, basically what this is doing is taking whatever's on the server at this port, we're going to show on our local host at this port. So if we go into a web browser and go to localhost 8888/phpMyAdmin, that is going to serve across the SSH tunnel over port 8888 the phpMyAdmin application. Now, if we close out of, hold on, let me just show you this. If we close out of this with Control-C, this tunnel, and we refresh this page, that's going to go away. The only way that page shows up, and that's the beauty of reverse SSH tunnels, the only way that page shows up is if you have that tunnel open. And it's a complicated syntax, but it does a really cool thing. So let's refresh that page, and we'll log into the, just like we are a MySQL user, log in with root and the password from before, which, let me pull that up again. That was this one right here. We'll paste that in, and now you can access your database through a graphical user interface. So same thing as before, this is the WordPress installation, and you can see those same exact tables in here. All right, guys, that's all I wanted to show you about WordPress on Lightsail. We've done what we wanted to do. We got our domain name with an SSL certificate. If you want to learn more about customizing your WordPress website, I have this video called 15 different things to do, important things to do after installing WordPress. So definitely check that out. I'll see you guys over there.